Hello and welcome to today's English lesson. My name is Stuart. In today's lesson, we're looking at how we use the words borrow and lend in English and the differences between the two. Let's go to the intro. Now, today's lesson is looking at borrow and lend, and these two words are confusing for a lot of people. Some people have trouble to understand when we use one and when we use the other. But in this lesson, I will try to explain as clearly as possible the difference between the two. So firstly, we'll start with borrow. And the structure for borrow is you borrow something from somebody. Borrow something from somebody. Another way of looking at borrow is that you take it temporarily. Now the idea is that you give it back. If you borrow something from somebody, you give it back. You take it, but your intention is to give it back. So, the first example, can I borrow your pen? Can I borrow your pen? So I'm borrowing something from somebody. You, in this sense, can I borrow your pen? The second example, you haven't got a pen, you can borrow mine. You haven't got a pen, you can borrow mine. You can borrow my pen. The third example, I'd like to borrow some money, please. I'd like to borrow some money, please. So you ask somebody for some money. Maybe it's the bank, maybe it's a family member, but you ask somebody for money, or you ask to borrow some money from somebody. The next example, I borrowed $20 from my mother, okay? The clearer structure, I borrowed $20 from my mother. And the third example, where did you get that shirt? I borrowed it from John. I borrowed it from John. So I took it from John, but my idea is to give it back to him. So the idea with all of these things that I have borrowed or that you have borrowed is that you take them, you give them back. So the pen, money, I'll give this $20 back to my mother, and I'll give this shirt, this nice shirt, I'll give it back to John when I've finished with it. So I've borrowed it from John, and I'll give it back to him when I have finished with it. Now, the next example is lend, and you lend something to someone or somebody, or you lend someone something. Two different structures there. So lend something to someone or lend someone something. Examples. Can you lend me your pen? Can you lend me your pen? Okay, so borrow is to take, lend is to give. Can you lend me your pen? Can you give me your pen? Now, if you lend something to somebody, again, you expect to have it back. You give it to them, but you want it back. So can you lend me your pen? Of course, here you are. I can lend you my pen, or you can borrow my pen. The second example, I lent my pen to Jose. I lent my pen to Jose. He asked me for my pen and I lent it to him. Okay, I lent my pen to Jose. Next example, he lent his car to Steve and he crashed it. So he gave Steve his car, he lent his car to Steve, okay, he lent his car to Steve, and Steve unfortunately had an accident and crashed the car. I still want the car back even though it's crashed, okay? So he lent his car to Steve and he crashed it. The next example, would you mind lending me some money? Would you mind lending me some money? I need some money. Would you mind lending it to me or lending me some money? Okay, a few dollars, just enough to help me make ends meet, help me get by this month. Can you lend me some money, or would you mind lending me some money? And the last example, I asked the bank to lend me some money. I went to the bank, I asked for a loan, I asked them to lend me some money. So ask the bank to lend me some money. So the two structures again, lend something to someone, lend someone something. So borrow, the idea that you take, lend, the idea that you give, but you are expecting it back or you want the thing back at some time in the future. Now, thank you very much for watching the lesson. Any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below, just in the comment section down there. Remember to share the video on social media, your Facebook, your Google+, your Twitter, Pinterest. Share it up on social media. I'll see you in the next lesson. Have a good day. Bye.